Hey everyone, Sean here, and today in this video I have another review to share you guys, and that is featuring the highly anticipated Metroid Dread, the 2D Metroid game that a lot of people have been waiting and anticipated for a pretty good amount of time. This will be a quick draw style video, which means a rapid fire review, but it's just having that naming gimmick for this channel. If you know about quick draw, EIDO, that kind of thing, you know, and me, there you go. Anyways, before we unravel all this reviewing goodness, I'd like to remind you guys to like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell to notify all for future videos on this channel if you like to see more of them. Alright, so for those who want a quick overview for Metroid, Metroid is another Nintendo franchise that has defined a genre of sorts. Many games, whether it's major or indie, take so much inspiration from Metroid, and in fact, the commonly referred term Metroidvania is the result of Metroid, along with Konami's Castlevania series, forever cementing themselves as the 2D side-scrolling adventure game genre, thanks to the deep footprints these games left. You know, that big old impression they've left for us gamers. Metroid is all about sci-fi exploration with that non-linear structure. A part of what makes these games fun in their distinguishing manner is the upgrades you find only to feel results via gameplay, thus creating that satisfying feeling. This further is driven by its sci-fi tone that conveys isolation. It's just you and the enemy aliens as you play as a generally silent female protagonist and bounty hunter, Samus Aran, which also serves as one of the memorable characteristics of being one of the first major games to feature a female protagonist. Funny enough, the Alien franchise is a heavy inspiration for the Metroid series, including its protagonist. Anyway, I first had my exposure to Metroid thanks to Super Smash Bros. And later on, Metroid Fusion on the Game Boy Advance as my first Metroid game that I spent hours but did not fully beat the game. This was similar with the Metroid Prime games later on. I wanted to put myself into those Metroid shoes once again after the announcement of Metroid Prime 4. However, it wasn't until Metroid Dread, the first 2D game in a long time since Samus Returns, I actually went ahead and purchased my copy of the game during its release. After playing Metroid Dread, my overall verdict is that Dread is such a great callback to the classic gaming sort of feel I've experienced many years ago in the 90s and early 2000s. Firstly, the game looks great and stylish even on the Nintendo Switch. The art direction definitely brought me back to that classic Alien tone where it's dark, isolated, giving you that sense of, well, dread. I also really like the new look on Samus. It's a really nice callback to Fusion with that blue color. On top of that, the game runs at 60 frames per second mostly throughout the game. During my experience, I did notice quite a bit of chugging during one of the later boss fights, but otherwise during the majority of the game, it ran smoothly. Of course, the sounds and music added to that dark sci-fi tone. Hearing the classic sounds of Metroid was also welcoming moments of nostalgia, from booting up the save file to updating that upgrade. It's just oh so satisfying as it nails it every time. Most importantly, the gameplay is just phenomenal. The feel of control is just tight as you move, shoot around enemies, and especially once you get used to the controls, which did take some time for me as someone who hasn't played a 2D Metroid game in a long time since Fusion. My only gripe about this side of things is the space jumping, which is an upgrade you get later on. It did feel inconsistent at times with the timing and rhythm, which did cost me some boss fights. It did get me killed in those key moments. There were other factors that really calls back to that classic gaming sort of feel, and that's the challenge. Even on normal mode, you have plenty of challenge fighting each boss for your first time. There will be times where you feel some frustration, but all the more satisfying once you beat them. On the topic of boss fights, it did have a decent selection, but later on, I've noticed the reoccurring robot soldiers, which did feel cheap in a way, since the pattern is similar for the most part with some exceptions. There were some bosses that were just enhanced versions of what you've already fought on a regular basis while roaming around in the map. And these fights were later on, so therefore most of the cool ones were actually early on. To me, the boss fights here are kind of a mixed bag in terms of cool factor. The challenge was certainly there, but not sort of that panache that I do look for when it comes to these boss fights and just video games in general. One of the key mechanics Dread offers is the countering, which was present in Samus Returns. You're given a melee attack which acts as a counter for each enemy and even bosses, adding more layers to the already vibrant combat. Learning the timing of countering your enemies is very rewarding since it gives you more health and ammo back than conventional means, especially during boss fights. You can also even see more cinematics when you counter certain bosses. You can also slide, which is also something new for the game, and it added even more when it comes to the mobility layers in a way. One of the defining characteristics for Dread are the certain enemies called Emmys. The Emmys are essentially elite robots that are after you, and well, for story reasons, and they are pretty much unstoppable until you get a temporary upgrade for each segment called the Omega Cannon, and that's the only way to kill them. But otherwise, you really want to just run away or find ways to get around them. Now, if you do run into them, you will be instantly killed right there on the spot, unless you can time your counters very well. But a lot of times, well, you just die instantly. I found myself getting killed by these things many a times during my playthrough. But otherwise, getting rid of them is satisfying in its own right. You know, after getting the Omega Cannon, beating these sub-bosses and stuff before getting said upgrade. The sequences tend to be a little similar with each other, but otherwise, each of them is just as satisfying as before. Each enemy has their own sort of gimmick. One of them is super fast, one of them shoots out a stunning blast, so on and so forth. The world itself, Planet ZDR, does offer level designs appropriate to the theme and story for the game. It also offers a decent variety of locations as well as the enemies in the game, ranging from alien creatures to robots and parasites. Of course, Metroid would not be Metroid without secret items to collect. The game is littered with these, and finding them all is just as fun if you're willing to put the time into them, and well, for the sake of 100%ing the game. Of course, there are items you do have to collect in order to upgrade Samus to not only fight enemies better, but to unlock certain obstacles to obtain certain items, even key ones at that. The story, while minimal, does offer a gratifying start to finish. There are some unraveling mysteries which does make for some good entertainment once you get there. It was nice to see cutscenes that provided enough exposition to provide explanations while not slowing down your momentum of wanting to explore more of the planet. The most dreadful question or negative point I must address here is the price. This is a fully priced game at $60, while the game is relatively short and its graphics are not well up there, I guess, with the current gen games. Someone even took the time to put that on social media as a formal critique, I guess, of sorts. And there was a lot of engagement from that tweet, let's just say. But anyway, it took me just about 10 hours to complete the main game with some extra exploration on my end. However, some people can beat it in just 7. Now, with that said, I think in my humble opinion, whether the game is worth the price, I think this is just something you need to feel and not just look at the numbers here. The graphics, as I said, look stylish and more than serviceable on a Nintendo Switch while feeling really good to play. Ultimately, Metroid Dread is really such a great callback to classic gaming. That feeling you get from playing 2D side-scrolling adventure games is just so nice to return to, all while having a great exploration experience, challenge from the enemies and bosses, and a minimal but gratifying storytelling that's enough to entertain and keep you playing that further complements its satisfying collecting aspects from Metroid games despite that pricing. Now, with that said, I think $50 would have been perfect for Dread, but even $10 more, I didn't feel any buyer's remorse of sorts. I felt satisfaction more than anything by the time I was finished with this game. It's a solid game for this Nintendo Switch. And so with that, I am going to give this game a rugged 8 out of 10. The developers, Nintendo, and Mercury Stream did a phenomenal job cranking out this game in order to quench that thirst for a console Metroid game after all these years. I certainly had fun with this title, and I can proudly say that this is my first Metroid game that I've fully beaten when it comes to the main game side of things. Nonetheless, I highly recommend this game to all Metroid fans and those who own the Switch in general. It'd be a great gift certainly for the upcoming holidays for not only yourself, of course, but any friend that has a Nintendo Switch. I think they all should take a gander at Metroid Dread. So, thank you guys so much for tuning in for this review. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And again, I really do appreciate it because it all is a contributing factor to, get this channel, going and other people's recommendations, I guess. But anyways, thank you guys so much nonetheless, and go out and get Metroid Dread. I really had a lot of fun with it, so I think you guys will too. On that note, thank you guys so much. This will be my review for Metroid Dread. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you guys in the next video. Sean out.